Love stories have us believe that if love has taken root, all else ceases to matter, and two can live off love and only love. But in truth, life is infinitely more complicated, and real love is rarely so simple. The mansion came to life. The shutters and doors flew open and smacked terribly against the crumbling walls, and from the darkness within, running on all fours in a mad frenzy, a mountain of muscle and teeth was charging towards the Witcher. Faster than the eye can follow, the Witcher drew his blade and stood his ground. The tip of his luminous sword pointed towards the incoming beast. Gravel spraying in all directions, the monster ground to a halt. Stomping its enormous paws and standing up straight, it roared.
"Flee, mortal men. I will devour you, tear you to pieces."
The creature was a bipedal humanoid, dressed in tattered clothes that, despite their age, still had an air of class to them. Decorated with various ornaments and useless details you would never find on a Witcher's jerkin. Standing at 4 heads taller than Geralt, the monster had a huge bear-like head looming above a broad, hairy chest, but curiously, judging by the human-sized legs and feet, its monstrous form extended from the waist up.
"Are you deaf? Away with you!"
Sneered the monster and released a bellowing roar that once again brought the mansion to life, its very walls shaking with uncontained fury. The Witcher stood still, his sword held high.
"Clear off while you're still in one piece,"
roared the creature, less sure of himself.
"Because if you don't, then I'll—"
"Then what?" interrupted Geralt, gripping his sword more firmly. A fire-red tongue flopped out of the monster's mouth as it gasped and tilted its head in shock.
"Look at him. Isn't he brave?"
The creature rolled the word slowly over his long tongue.
"Lower that iron, if you please. Perhaps you cannot realize you are in my courtyard. Or maybe it's customary, wherever you come from, to threaten people with swords in their own courtyards."
"It's customary," nodded Geralt in agreement, when faced with people who greet their guests with a roar and the cry that they're going to tear you to pieces.
"Pox on it!"
The creature spat and bared its fangs, enraged by Geralt's provocation.
"And he'll insult me on top of it all, this strangler. A guest, is he? Pushes his way into the yard, ruins someone else's flowers, plays the lords, and thinks he'll be brought bread and salt. Bah!"
Crossing his humongous paws over its chest, the creature glared at the Witcher. "So?" spoke Geralt after a moment's silence, slowly lowering his sword. "Are we going to carry on standing like this?"
"And what do you suggest instead? Lying down? Put that iron away, I said,"
snorted the monster, still glaring at the intruder with bloodshot eyes, yet the aggressive edge was absent from its tone. Slowly, deliberating every movement, Geralt slid the weapon into his scabbard and, without lowering his arm, stroked the hilt which rose above his shoulder. "I'd prefer you not make any sudden movements," spoke the Witcher calmly. "This sword can be drawn again, faster than you imagine."
"I noticed,"
rasped the Witcher through clenched fangs.
"If it wasn't for that, you'd be out of this gate a long time ago, with my boot print up your ass. What do you want here? How did you get here?"
"I got lost," lied the Witcher instinctively.
"You got lost,"
repeated the monster and grinned horribly, exposing 2 rows of curved fangs that adorned its jaw.
"Well, and lose your way. Out of the gate, turn your left ear to the sun and keep walking. You'll soon get back to the highway." "Well, what are you waiting for?"
"Is there any water?" asked the Witcher calmly, gesturing at the mare by the gates. "The horse is thirsty, and so am I, if this doesn't inconvenience you." Sweeping his bloodshot eyes over the Witcher's worn-out, road-tired figure, the monster shifted its weight.
"Listen, you,"
he said.
"Are you really not frightened of me?"
"Should I be?" The monster looked around, cleared his throat, and yanked up his baggy trousers.
"Pox on it, what's the harm of a guest in the house? It's not every day I meet someone who doesn't run away or faint at the sight of me. All right then. If you're weary but honest wanderer, I invite you in. But if you're a brigand or a thief, then I warn you. This house does what I tell it. Within these walls I rule."
Lifting his hairy paw, the monster, with a flick of the wrist, prompted the mansion to not so gently open all of its shutters and doors, and the fountain to produce a strange, rumbling sound.
I invite you in.
Mirroring the crumbling exterior of the mansion, the long hallways and expansive rooms found inside have likewise succumbed to the passage of time. The ivory-colored tapestry that covered the walls of the hallways lost its charm. Faded and flaking, it was riddled by patches of mold and in places hung limply over the walkway. Appearing sporadically along the walls at Geralt's eye level, deep claw marks scarred the aging tapestry. Despite its pitiful state, the interior of the mansion was surprisingly tidy. The window panes were stain-free and allowed in a generous amount of sunlight. The floorboards were freshly scrubbed, and the little furniture that could be found, a couple of chairs and tables made by skillful craftsmen, were devoid of dust and dirt.
No doubt you would like to know whether I got 40 servants as beautiful as me. Well, I don't.
Spoke the beast as they were climbing a decorated staircase. The Witcher's medallion swung on its chain.
What's that around your neck, dear guest?
Have a look. Taking it in its paw, the host turned the medallion over and examined it.
The animal has an unpleasant expression. What is it?
Asked the monster, lifting the shiny medallion up to his eyes. It's my guild's badge.
Ah, you make muzzles, no doubt. This way, please. Light.
The shout echoed through the mansion and woke up whatever power rested within. The dormant torches that hang from the walls came to life, a bright flame burning strongly within the iron brackets. Not bad, remarked the Witcher. The monster cackled.
That's it? I see you won't be amazed by any old trick. I told you, this house obeys my commands. This way, please.
The middle of the dark, windowless room was taken up by a huge oak table, devoid of decorations and adorned only by a single brass candlestick. At the monster's command, the candles lit and flickered a tiny flame, far too weak to light up the spacious room. Further back, across from the door, an enormous fireplace was laying dormant. Stretching along the wall, above it were a series of old, flaking portraits depicting men with less than noble faces. One of the side walls was heavily adorned with all sorts of shields and bulwarks. Some were simple round wooden shields, and others were masterfully crafted works of metal, wood, and hide, but they all showed their age. The crests depicted on them have faded, and metal rims and spikes were spotted with rust. The same deterioration was present on the weapons and armor pieces that covered the opposite wall. Maces, axes, mauls, swords, and spears were hanging alongside full sets of plate armor and simpler leather jerkins and mail vests. Flanking the doors on both sides were various hunting trophies, elks and stags whose large antlers stretched menacingly over the heads of wild boars, brown bear, and lynxes. Nestled between the ruffled and frayed wings of an eagle and sparrowhawk, holding the center place of honor was the raw dragon's head, tainted brown, damaged and leaking stuffing. Geralt examined it more closely.
My grandpa killed it,
said the monster, lighting the fireplace with the flick of his wrist.
It was probably the last one in the vicinity when it got itself killed.
The monster gestured at the ornate oak chair.
Sit, dear guest. Are you hungry?
I won't deny it, dear host. The monster sat at the table, lowered its head, clasped its hairy paws over its stomach, muttered something while twiddling its enormous stumps, then suddenly roared and clobbered the table with an open paw. Smacking and clattering about, dishes and plates, forks and cups appeared on the table, spreading the sweet aroma of roast meat, garlic, nutmeg, and lemon. Geralt didn't show any surprise.
Yes.
The monster rubbed its hand.
This is better than servant, isn't it? Help yourself, dear guest. This is proper, real food, don't worry.
Reaching over, Geralt took a roasted fowl and tore it in half. I'm not worried, he said, biting the succulent breast meat.
I forgot,
chuckled the monster,
that you're not timid. What shall I call you?
Geralt. And your name, dear host?
Nivellen, but they call me Dagon or Fanger around here, and they use me to frighten children.
The monster again cackled at its own expense, emptying an enormous chalice and proceeding to devour half a bowl of terrine in one go. Frightened children, repeated Geralt with his mouth full. Without any reason, no doubt.
Of course not. Your health, Geralt.
exclaimed the monster and rose a cup, eyeing his guest. And yours, Nivellen. The Witcher drank heavily from the brass chalice, the bittersweet wine flowing smoothly down his throat. After a moment's silence between bites and gulps, Geralt spoke. Are your magical powers innate? The monster looked up from the remains of a small pig.
No, I've had him since growing this trap, that is. I don't know how it happened myself, but the house does whatever I wish. Nothing very big. I can conjure food, drink, clothes, clean linen, hot water, soap. Any woman can do that, and without using magic at that. It's nothing very remarkable.
It is something, and this trap, as you call it, have you had it for long?
12 years.
How did it happen? Asked the Witcher casually, as if talking whether the corn has grown.
What's it got to do with you? Pour yourself some wine, dear guest.
The monster grumbled and waved its arm, and with a splash and a gulp, the pots were refilled with fresh wine. With pleasure. It's got nothing to do with me, I'm just asking out of curiosity. The monster stopped mid-bite and glared at the Witcher for a second, fresh fat hanging from its furry chin.
An acceptable reason,
He suddenly laughed loudly and smacked the table with his paw,
but I don't accept it. It's got nothing to do with you, and that's that.
said the monster decisively.
But to satisfy your curiosity a little, I'll show you what I used to look like. Look at those portraits. The first from the chimney is my father, the second box only knows, and the third is me. Can you see it?
Looking down from the painting, through layers of dust and cobwebs, a sick-looking, spotty-faced, bloated man was miserably looking back at Geralt. The Witcher, who was no stranger to the way painters tended to flatter their clients, simply nodded.
Can you see it?
Repeated Nivellen, baring his fangs. I can,
Who are you?
growled the monster. I don't understand, Geralt replied, innocently taking a shallow sip from a chalice.
You don't understand.
The monster raised his head, the gentle candlelight reflecting of his cat eyes. My portrait is hanged beyond the candlelight.
I can see it, but I'm not human, at least not at the moment. A human looking at my portrait would get up, go closer, and no doubt have to take a candlestick with them. You didn't do that, so the conclusion is simple. But I'm asking you plainly, are you human?
The Witcher, not paying much mind to Nivellen as he spoke, kept twirling the crystal chalice, admiring how the light danced off the golden-plated rim. If that's the way you put it, pausing for a second, looking up from the exquisite chalice and gazing back at his host. Not quite.
Ah, surely it won't be tactless if I ask in that case, what are you?
A Witcher,
Ah,
repeated Nivellen after a moment's silence.
if I remember rightly, witchers earn their living in an interesting way. They kill monsters.
The host sneered the last words out through clasped jaws and leaned back on the table, intertwining his large fingers. You remember correctly. The Witcher mirrored his host's movement, leaning on the table, his cat-like eyes shining in the dim candlelight. Like heavy wool curtains, silence fell on the room. Nothing moved but the flickering flame of a candle, casting wild shadows on two statue-like figures with shining eyes. Molten wax slowly dripped on the brass candlestick. Nivellen sat upright, his hairy eyes twitching lightly.
Let's assume
He gestured at the Witcher.
that you draw your sword before I jump on you. Let's assume you even manage to cut me down. With my weight, that won't stop me. I'll take you down through sheer momentum, and then it's teeth that'll decide. What do you think, Witcher? Which one of us has a better chance if it comes to biting each other's throat?
The Witcher absent-mindedly reached for a wooden flagon. He unstoppered it and slowly poured himself some wine. He took a modest sip before leaning back in the heavy chair. He looked at the monster with a smile, an exceptionally ugly one. That has been it for this second episode of A Grain of Truth, the second volume, of A Grain of Truth, and the second episode of Witcher Stories. Unfortunately, I had to cut it up in another part because, well, it was just getting a little bit too long and I didn't have enough time to actually finish it. It's going to probably be premiering 2 weeks from this day. I'm gonna try and give myself 2 weeks to make this whole episode because it's a lot of work. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. My name has been Soulfax and I will see you next time. Bye bye.